Hey everybody, welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. I have my all-time favorite guest, Susan Chomsky, and she's going to be talking about this book, Color Your Chakras. Welcome, Susan.
I'm so glad to be here with you today, CJ.
Okay, I have to tell everyone that I'm in shock and awe because I was reading through this book and you used some of the content from The Power of Chakras, which is one of the books that you wrote. And I did not realize there are these like absolutely gorgeous drawings. Can people see these in here that you drew?
Yeah, I
Oh
did.
my gosh. And then you're telling me how you created this book, which was partially creating using some of the content that you had written before. But I didn't realize that you said that you channel these books too, like guidance comes through you in terms of what to, like in terms of the content, or how does the information work in these drawings? How did they come to you?
Actually, now this book, I had to do a lot of research for this particular book,
Mm-hmm.
The Power of Chakras, which also has the information in Color Your Chakras.
Right.
Both books have the same information, actually, except for, of course, Color Your Chakras is a very shortened version of it because it's
Right.
just on the left-hand pages. There's a few
Yeah.
explanations about the drawings that are on the right-hand pages.
Right.
So it's a very brief explanation compared to what's in the book, The Power of Chakras. But when my publisher first asked me to write that book, I went back to the ancient scriptures of India to find the most authentic information I could find on that subject. So I
Wow.
went to the Vedic scriptures, the Tantric scriptures, because I know enough Sanskrit. I was able to understand what they were talking
All
about,
right, now you're blowing my mind
even if,
again. So you were
even
actually
in
not reading the English translations, but you were reading it in Sanskrit?
no, actually, I was reading the English translations, but if you don't know the Sanskrit words, you're not going to be able to understand the English translations. So, because I know enough Sanskrit words, I was able to understand that and able to translate that into what people of the West, people in the West, would be able to comprehend. So,
Mm.
that's what I did with the book, The Power of Chakras, and that ended up also being in Color Your Chakras. Now, I did do the illustrations for this book, for the book, The Power of Chakras, and that was a huge project to do those illustrations.
Yeah.
Thank goodness I had all of those so that I could use them in the book, Color Your Chakras. And I'm so glad that my publisher wanted to do this book because in the book, The Power of Chakras, the illustrations were so small, they were like teeny weeny postage stamp. I mean, they were just
Oh, so
really
you actually did these illustrations a while back, is that right? So if I look at, I'm going to show people what these look like. They're very intricate. I don't know if you can see this,
yeah.
but see all the detail in these illustrations. So this was a teeny drawing. How could you even do this in a teeny drawing?
What I'm saying is they published it teeny weeny in the book, The Power of Chakras. So I was so
Oh,
disappointed that they did the illustration so small in that book that I was thrilled when they decided to do this coloring book. So the illustrations would actually be each one on a full page. I was so
I
excited about that.
see. Okay.
So
So
I'm really glad
is
how it
this like
came out.
is this the actual size? Is this approximate to the actual size of the drawing that you
But that
did?
I drew it, yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
approximately.
Okay, so how did it come to you to, because these are super intricate. I mean, can people
Yeah.
look see these? They're beautiful. How did these images, did they come to you through, or were they just, you're kind of doodling and they came along? How did they come to you?
Okay, so these illustrations are based upon the descriptions in the ancient scriptures of India.
Hmm.
So, for example, each one of the major chakras has deities that are associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
And these deities are, there's like a Shiva deity, and there's deities of the various elements. The one you're looking at
It's
right
Indra.
now is the earth element.
Right.
So each one of them has an element associated with it, and each one is associated with a specific chakra.
Right.
So I ended up doing these illustrations based upon the descriptions of ancient India in the scriptures. So that's how all the different accoutrements, the number of arms, there's very detailed descriptions in the ancient
Wow.
scriptures. Yeah,
Very cool. Okay.
yeah.
And then And then why make it a coloring book? Because this I know is all the rage to make us.
Yeah.
It's like there's something about the presence of coloring. Or I've never colored, but have you talked to people who have colored with this book and what happens when they're coloring with these really powerful symbols and
Yeah.
images?
Yeah. The thing is, even if you pick up the book and you start to thumb through it, you're going to find that your energy is going to be lifted.
Mm-hmm.
Even looking at these images lifts your energy because you're looking at the images of the chakras, and the chakras are the centers of life force energy. So you're increasing your life force energy as you're looking through the book. Now, if you start to actually color it, then you're imbibing even more of these energies. So
Mm.
it gets to be really, really powerful when you use this book as a meditation
Mm.
and color your chakras. I mean, it's really powerful.
Yeah, so okay, so I was looking at I was doing some research on chakras, and one of the things that it says is that, so your chakras may be out of balance. There may be energy that's stuck there. They're out of balance or out of alignment in some way, and they talk about cleansing and harmonizing your chakras. So you could color in one of these books and do that. That's what I think you just said. Is that right?
What will happen is it will increase the energy in that particular chakra when you're coloring the images that are associated with that chakra. And also, you're going to learn about the chakras by reading the left hand pages, you'll be learning. And then on the right hand pages, you'll be doing the activity, which will help increase that pranic energy, that life force energy that's flowing and radiating from each chakra.
Yeah, so I'm just going to show people on the screen. So this is a description of, it looks like this is the water element and
Right.
Varuna. And
Yeah.
then you also have the images. So, well, you'll read this, so you have kind of a conscious understanding of
Right.
this energy. And then while you're coloring, you're going to be pulling in that energy of
It's
water.
powerful.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
really, really powerful.
have you done it yourself? I just got chills. Have you done it yourself? And have you found, like, what have you found shifted when you color yourself in your own drawings?
Yeah, I mean the thing is that I actually created all these drawings.
I
So
know.
when I was when I was drawing these images, it was an incredibly energetic activity
Hmm.
because I was imbibing the qualities of each one of these deities and each one of these energies into my energy field.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever we place our attention on becomes stronger in our life. So, when we're placing our attention on the chakras and on the energies that are associated with the chakras, then that grows stronger.
Yeah.
And we become more charismatic, more successful. We have more energy. We have greater health, well being, peace of mind. We feel waves of divine bliss flowing through our being. I mean, it's really incredible.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So it's what's so interesting to me, it's almost devotional. Do you know when you in
It
India they
is.
actually have these devotions where they're praying and they're thinking about that
Yeah.
goddess or god and they're just, praying so hard that it does seem like this is a devotional exercise. When you're
It can
drawing,
be,
yeah.
yes. It can be a devotional exercise, but if you're not religious or you're not really into these particular gods or goddesses or whatever you want to call them, you're still going to be lifted by
Right.
these energies,
Right.
even
So
if you don't believe in it.
okay, I don't believe. Let's say I don't believe in any of these things, and my back hurts. Just color this in, like, and then let's see what happens.
It can
Right?
help.
What? It can't hurt. It's probably going to help. So why not? Right? Or if I have, if I'm having, so this is the pelvic chakra. So go in and color every single one of these if you're having problems with, because I'm having some problems with my back lately. So I think it's probably a pelvic thing,
Oh,
or a root chakra. I don't know, but
yeah.
if like, why not color these things? And it can't. What harm could come of you? Only, and in theory, what you're saying is that the energies, whether you believe in these gods or goddesses, regardless, the
Hmm.
energy will still be there, present
Yeah.
and healing.
Well, the gods and goddesses are just symbols of the actual energies that are flowing through your subtle body.
Right.
That's what it is. And also of the vibrations that underlie the universe and give rise to the universe, starting with the vibration Om, and then that splitting into 50 mantras, which are the 50 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
And these 50 letters of the Sanskrit alphabet end up being on what we call the petals of the chakras, of
Mm-hmm.
the There are 50 petals of the 7 major chakras, total 50, and the Sanskrit letters are on those petals. So those radiations or vibrations of subtle energy, you imbibe those when you're coloring the chakras. So you use this book to color.
All right, so I have what was interesting, and I was just looking at some basic web research, and they don't talk about some of the concepts that are in your book. I mean, probably if I dug deep a lot, they would.
No.
But the one
No,
thing,
you have to actually go back to the ancient scriptures to get this information. So, really, my book, The Power of Chakras, people who are quite famous in the chakra field, like Anna Dia Judith, Cindy Dale, both of them have admitted to me that this book, The Power of Chakras, the big book that I wrote, the actual literary book, not the coloring book, that they use that book for research and that they send their students to read that book if the students want to really go deep into the origins of what the chakras really are.
Right, because you've done the base research.
I did the research by going back to the original scriptures, because that has the fundamental, most authentic information that you're going to find on the topic.
And what's so interesting to me is that when people talk about chakras, they're like, oh, chakra. It's like this kind of soft, kind of wavy kind of thing. It's like, oh, your back hurts. It's probably your pelvic chakra. Energy is stuck, and people are like, whatever. If you're from really Western, you're like, whatever. However, what's interesting is that when I'm reading your book, it's very systematic. It's not this kind of soft. There's a science. I mean, it may not look like the science that we're used to, but there's a structure and a science and an ideology. It's not just this kind of intuitive. You know what I mean? That's what I think is so
I know exactly what you mean, because the ancient science of India, the Ayurvedic medicine, and the ancient science of China, Chinese medicine, they use this system. They use the chakra system. They use the meridians and the chakra points, which are also acupuncture points. They use these in medicine. I mean, it is a science.
Right, yeah, it's not just like this loosey-goosey kind of thing.
It's not.
All right.
It's actually a science.
I know, and I actually just got acupuncture, so I'm a believer. So I'm not questioning. I'm a believer. I've been converted. Okay, so all right, so let's talk about some of the concepts that they really don't talk about. So you have a sheath, and if you can look at the illustration, it shows all the different sheaths that you have, which I've read some stuff about these sheaths, but tell us about what these. Is this what our aura is? How are they?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
this is exactly what your aura is. Yes.
Okay.
So
they sound stupid.
No,
it's a stupid question. But there's
not a stupid question.
A food sheath.
It's a really good question.
Okay, there's a food sheath, a vital sheath, a mental sheath, an intellectual sheath, and a blissful sheath. So what does this mean? Help educate us on what this means.
Yes, absolutely. So the food sheath is called Annamaya Kosha, and it's called the food sheath. It's your physical body. It's called the food sheath because it's made of food, sustained by food, and it becomes food for something else after you're gone. So that's why it's called the food sheath.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so then the next sheath is called the vital sheath or the pranamaya kosha. Pranamaya kosha is made of prana. Prana is life force energy. In India, they call it prana. In China, they call it chi. And in Japan, they call it ki. So that life force energy flows through that particular sheath called the vital sheath. And the nadi, or conduits of pranic energy, are flowing through that vital sheath. They're also called meridian. And the chakras are in that vital sheath. The chakra, the word chakra means wheel. It's a wheel because it has a hub, which are where many of these conduits of subtle energy intersect. These nadi or meridians, they intersect and make a plexus. That's called a wheel or chakra. And then it has a hub, and it also has spokes. Spokes are the radiations of pranic energy coming from the center of the chakra. So it looks like a wheel because it's round, it has spokes, it has a hub.
And those are all part of the vital sheath, which
all
is
part of the vital sheath.
Life energy. So when the Chinese people are talking about chi or prana, when you're in a life yoga class or ki, these are all, this is where your chakras, I can't pronounce it, chakra,
Cha, cha,
cha,
kra.
chakras are, that this is all part of like your energy. And what does it mean to have a sheath? I just imagine like a little piece of saran wrap wrapped around me. That's what the picture looks like.
It does,
But
but
what is
it's
it?
not really like that. But it pervades, permeates, and surrounds your physical body. So
Hmm.
it's not like a lining. That isn't
Right.
what it is. It's actually pervading, permeating, and surrounding your physical body.
Ah,
But
okay.
it's in a different dimension. It's subtler. These subtle bodies are not in this physical dimension. If you were to dissect a corpse, you would not find a sheath,
Yeah,
prana, chakra,
it's
not
not like rings of a tree where you're like, aha,
yeah,
here's
cut
where I
into that.
see.
Cut, cut,
No, these
dissect.
are kind of, they're in a subtle, invisible. Some people actually can see these sheaths,
Yes.
but yeah.
You.
And so when
No,
people see
they see the
chakras,
mental. Yeah.
when, oh, that's mental. So when
But no,
people,
usually most aura readers will see the mental sheath. We haven't gotten there yet, but go
okay,
on.
okay, all right, that was my next question. But what else do we need to know about the vital sheath? Because
That's probably about all for
okay,
right now.
okay,
So then we have the mental sheath called the monomaya kosha. That contains your intellect. I'm sorry, wrong. That contains your mind and your attention. In other words, your conscious mind, that which makes you conscious.
hmm,
And also, it includes your senses. So, through the mental sheath, you are experiencing the world through the senses.
hmm,
That's what's in your mental sheath. So, for example, if a person has a near death experience, they report that they see their own body. Okay,
hmm,
how do they see their own body lying there? They're,
right,
how do they see
right.
their own body? They're not looking through their eyes, their physical eyes. They're looking through the subtle sense perception from the manamaya kosha, the mental body.
Oh, wait a second. That just blew my mind. So, okay, so we're like, here's my mind. This is my mind, CJ, like, doing mathematical problems, right? But then
Exactly.
there's like another mind, a greater mind, or some other mind.
Actually, that mind that's doing the mathematical problems is your mental sheath. It's in your mental sheath.
Into my mental sheath. So then how is it that this invisible thing that is around me can, so you're saying when people have out of body experiences, when they see themselves, they can actually they're going into the mental sheath and then they can see themselves and their body.
They're already in the mental sheath. What they've done is they have they have left the building. They've
Okay.
left the physical body,
Right.
okay?
Yes. Okay.
You're not in your physical body anymore. You're in your subtle body.
Ah.
And often they'll like go up to the ceiling and they'll look down and they'll see their body, you know.
Mm.
They flew out of their body and they
Right.
see their physical body lying there and people are trying to resuscitate them. So how do they see? They
Right.
see through the mental body because the mental body is where our
Oh,
senses are located.
interesting.
Our sense perception is not located in your physical body.
Right.
You
They're not
have
my
organs.
fingertips or, it's actually what I'm sensing in my fingertips or when I feel something like a wind, that's actually my mental body that I'm
That's
feeling it.
correct.
Oh, I did not know. That's fascinating.
It is fascinating, isn't it? Okay, so then the next sheath is called the vital sheath, and that's where your
Well,
intellect and
wait,
your
wait, wait a
ego.
second. I just had another thing. So, wait a
Okay,
second.
another
So
question.
that's why, um, because it's not limited to my physical body, that's how come, I'm talking to clients on the phone and I literally feel like what's happening with your throat. Like I can feel what's happening. Is that so I'm sensing, I literally, because I'm empathic, I can feel like something's happening in their throat or your shoulder hurts right here. I can literally feel it. So is that because my, my mental sheath, which has those sense perceptions, can actually feel something that is beyond the physical boundaries of me sitting here? They're on the phone and I can feel it.
Yeah.
Is that how?
Actually, you're sensing it through your third eye.
Okay, so that's nothing to do with the sheath.
Well, it is because the mental sheath is located in the third eye area.
Oh, it is. Okay. So is that
I mean,
what's,
the center of the mental sheath.
are you
That's
saying that for me specifically or everyone when they
for
actually sense?
everyone.
Yeah, that's where they actually feel it's the mental sheath that, but it's a sensing. Again, it's sensing things around them, but it can go beyond a physical boundary of me sitting here. I could actually feel someone in Colorado and what they're feeling.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So sorry, the little nugget just got solidified in my head, and I was a little bit shocked. All right. So intellect sheath. So we've
Intellect
talked about
sheath.
food, vital sheath, mental sheath, and the next one is intellect sheath.
The intellect sheath is called the Vijnanamaya Kosha,
Hmm.
and that one is your intellect and your ego are
Oh.
there. Your intellect is your ability to discern and decide things and that sort of thing. And
Hmm.
your ego is who you think you are. It's not who you really are, it's who you think you are. Based
Okay.
upon history, based upon beliefs, habits, conditions, ideas,
Okay.
prejudices, whatever it is,
Right.
that's who you think you are. That's your ego. It's
Hmm.
not your true self, it's not your higher self, it's your ego self.
Hmm.
So, intellect sheath contains your intellect and ego.
Okay. And so these are sort of kind of sounding familiar to people who, and I know you also have like the ability to talk to dead people and etc. But when people go, there are people who do Michael readings and they go into all these different, like astral planes, all these different planes in the
Mhm.
field of the universe. It's the mirror. Is it a mirror of these sheaths, or is that something completely different? Am I connecting two different things that don't connect, or are they connected?
Well, I mean, we're using our sheaths to have any experience. So,
Okay.
for example, your mental sheath, you use that to have any experience, whether it's a subtle experience or a gross experience in the physical realm. You're going to be experiencing that through the senses. You can't have any experiences without using your senses.
Okay.
So you're always using your sheaths
Got it.
with,
Okay.
with,
Got it.
with whichever experience you're having.
Right. Right. Okay. But so there's not a correlation between what we feel as an individual point of light and then the cosmos, which actually has all these different kind of layers.
We can experience our individual self, we can experience the things around us. And on the subtle realm, we can experience universal experiences, cosmic experiences, all kinds of
Right.
experiences.
Yeah, you're saying that these sheaths are the things that enable me to go out and experience these particular things,
Everything.
but there's not a correlation between a mapping to go see. This is what it's like for CJ. See, this is exactly what it's like for the universe. That's what.
Actually, there is a huge mapping.
Okay.
In my book, The Power of Chakras, I have a chapter called As Above, So Below.
Okay. Yes.
And in that chapter, I correlate the beginnings and the evolution of the universe with the beginnings and evolution of individual evolution, and how the structure of the chakras and the structure of the universe correlate with each other.
Okay, that's just fantastic because my husband, who I told you was the first one to pick up this book, he has been doing a lot of deep meditative listening. And when he went through that deep meditative listening, he said, "You know what I'm realizing about the chakras is they correlate to the they correlate to our individual consciousness evolving, and that correlates to how the universe is created, that like how consciousness generally is created,
That's
and
exactly
that's
what I explain in the book, The Power of Chakras. It's a very deep, esoteric chapter. It's called As Above, So Below. And I had cognized this information. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first person to cognize it,
well, my
but
husband
I
did
had
kind of
never
same
read it
thing, right?
anywhere else.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
in that book. So
Yeah, so when you say you cognize it, so this was something that, like my husband, it came to him in a very deep, felt, expressed way, but it wasn't written anywhere. It wasn't written anywhere. He didn't read your chapter. He just kind
right.
of intuitively knew that that was the same. And he had said that, if you look at the root chakra, it's kind of like plant consciousness, animal consciousness, and then we move to kind of,
Exactly.
yeah, more
I
deeper
explain that in the
spiritual.
book too. In
Yeah.
chapter 8 of that book, The Power of Chakras, I talk about how consciousness relates to the different chakras and the different levels of consciousness. That's
Interesting.
also talked about. He should read that book.
I think he should. That's what I'm concluding. I'm definitely concluding
I
that.
think he would really enjoy the book, The Power
Yes.
of
Okay.
Chakras.
So there's I'm
He's a
sorry.
deep thinker. He would
He is a
really.
deep, and he's like you. He's a sage. He's someone who's actually pulling information from different places and helping articulate them to the general public in a way that makes sense to them. All right. So the intellect sheath we were saying I've completely derailed you. I'm sorry. You talk
All
about
right. The intellect ego is the intellect sheath.
Okay.
And then the final sheath is called the Anandamaya kosha, which is your, it's called the blissful sheath.
Okay.
And it is your causal body. It is what is the source of your individuation. It's what
Ah,
separates you from the rest of the universe.
interesting. Okay, so
So, yeah, so those are the sheaths, the 5 sheaths. They're called pancha kosha, 5 sheaths.
okay.
That's what they say in Sanskrit. So, it's very interesting to find out about the sheaths and to understand these different energies.
Right. So it actually is helping me understand by knowing these sheaths, it helps me understand why it is that I can travel to these different places. It understands what's really like, I think it's my mind doing these things, but it's really my mental sheath, or it's really my,
Your
if,
mind is your mental sheath.
right. No, I know, but I don't, I think of it as literally like the brain in my body, but it's
Yeah,
actually,
most people do.
yeah, but it's
Most
actually the
people
sheath.
think in physicality. They don't think about the subtle body.
Right. And I think
They
that that's the
think
thing.
that our brain is what thinks. Your
Right.
brain doesn't think at all. Your brain is a mass of cells and neurons. And, the brain has no consciousness.
Right. Well, we're so tied into our bodies being everything that we are, but there's actually these subtle bodies, which actually are really the thing that's connected to the greater consciousness, right? It's these other things, not,
That's
yeah,
correct.
not our bodies.
Our
That's what I'm
physical
taking away.
body, as a matter of fact, is just a corpse or a zombie. It is said in the ancient scriptures of India
Yeah.
that when prana is in the body, that is what is defined as life. And when prana leaves the body, that is what is defined as death.
Okay.
So prana makes the body have motion and heat.
Hmm.
And when prana leaves the body grows cold and it's motionless.
Hmm.
So prana is what is keeping you alive. Prana is life force energy, and that is what is giving you life. There's no life in this physical body.
Okay. So
I
what,
mean,
when people,
people think, you ask a doctor what gives this body life, he will not have an answer for you. No medical doctor will ever tell you what gives life to a body.
oh, a Chinese
But
doctor would say
but a
prana.
Chinese body would, yeah, Chinese doctor would say yes, it's qi.
Gee,
Qi is what
prana
gives you.
is what's actually giving you life. So, okay. Now I've lost train of thought because I'm so fascinated. My mind is connecting all these different pieces. Oh, I know. Chakras, or, sorry, um, auras. So you had said that when people are reading your aura, they're really reading your mental sheath, or what are they reading? Because there's all these sheaths of, right, which are kind of your subtle body. So do different aura readers read different things, or are they generally reading the same thing?
Most of them are reading the mental sheath because the mental sheath is where your emotions are.
Oh,
That's your
interesting.
mental emotional body. So
Oh,
it
okay.
has your senses, it has your ability to experience the world, and it has your emotions.
Hmm.
So when they're looking at your aura, usually they're looking at your different emotions and feelings at the moment, whatever you're going through.
Hmm.
But also, if they're a medical intuitive, then they'll also be able to pick up uh, potential problems in the vital body,
Yeah.
which are eventually causing problems in the physical body.
Yeah, I've heard
You might
mental,
see
yeah,
a streak or a spot
like a
or something.
dark spot, so that they
Hmm.
say, oh, I'm seeing something in your aura,
Exactly.
that in your pelvic area or in your
Huh?
stomach area. It's like a dark spot, they usually describe it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, um, so when people see my aura, and I went to a class to read auras, and during the class I could read auras, and after the class I could not read auras. So I don't know what I get. But anyways, what someone, for people who do see auras, they're always like, wow, your aura is gigantic. When they look at my aura, it's like big and wide and reaching. So what does that mean? Does it mean that I'm just thinking a lot, or like I'm a mental person? What does that mean?
Means you have a lot of energy.
Chi or
Chi.
mental energy? Okay, got it. So it's the amount of chi that you're carrying, how much life force is coming through you. Interesting. Okay, so that's what it means. And so when
If
they're,
you have a brighter, bigger aura, you have more prana.
oh,
That's what
okay,
it means.
okay, all right. Because they always make it seem like it's a bad thing or a worrisome
What?
thing or something I need to correct. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with
What?
that? No, they're like, you need to pull it in, make it smaller. I'm like, whatever.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
yeah, like at first I was like, okay, like I'll try to pull it in, but then it felt uncomfortable pulling it.
That's
I'm like,
really ridiculous.
I know.
I'm sorry to react like that, but I don't want to.
These are people who see me at, they're like, oh, you have a big aura. Like, you may want to tuck it in a little bit because you're too big and your boundaries are all blah. And I was like, okay. And then I tried doing it. I'm like, okay, I don't understand this, nor am I going to do this anymore. I don't know what you're talking about. But you helped me explain.
They might say that you have boundary issues or something like that. Maybe that's what they're saying.
No, I don't know what they're saying. Anyhow, so all of this stuff, the life energy force is coming from a Shushana. Is that right? Shushana? And there's
Sushumna.
Shumana.
Sushumna, but its life force is not coming from Sushumna. No.
Okay. So
life force.
So tell me this: you have the Ida, the Pingala. Like, how's
Ida and the Pingala.
So I'm just slaughtering these
names.
No
problem.
Say them correctly again.
Ida, and Pingala.
And Pingala, and the Sushumna.
Sushumna.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about these pieces.
Those are three major nadi.
Okay.
Nadi means the conduits of life force energy. Those are the energy tubes through which prana flows.
Okay.
You have tens of thousands of those flowing through your subtle body, okay? But there are three important ones that they talk about a lot, mainly because the Sushumna Nadi has to do with Kundalini. That's where Kundalini flows, through Sushumna. And Ida and Pingala are the two nadis that are regulating your sympathetic and parasympathetic parts of your autonomic nervous system. Mm-hmm. So the Ida nadi is regulating your parasympathetic part of your nervous system, and it's connected to the left nostril. Mm-hmm. And your Pingala nadi is connected to the sympathetic aspect of your autonomic nervous system, and that is connected to your right nostril. So at any given time during the day, one nostril is more, you might check, one is more open than the other, meaning that you're flowing more through either the parasympathetic or the sympathetic aspect is more dominant at that time. About every 115 minutes, it switches. In a healthy, normal individual, it'll switch from one nostril to the other about every 115 minutes. And that would be your biorhythms, we call in the West, biorhythms, meaning you're going through certain parts of the day where you're feeling more restful or you're feeling more energetic, where you want to, like be very active, or you want to be more restful. So these two different nadis are very, very important. And that's the reason why in India they have certain practices like pranayama exercises,
where you're breathing, like
alternate breathing exercise. Right. What that does is it balances the Ida and the Pingala power flows. It balances it so that your energy is more harmonious. Your autonomic nervous system is more harmonious. That's what that does.
You mean, does that help kick? So let's say that you said if everything, ideally what would happen is your body is regulating this energy and it crisscrosses. These two channels actually crisscross at each of the chakras. So they're kind of, I don't know. Anyhow, those things are crisscrossing. So if you're doing this alternate nostril breathing, is it, and it harmonizes, is that getting you so that if for whatever reason your body isn't regulating correctly, does this kind of kickstart you back into that place?
Yes. It is very powerful exercise that helps to create more harmony and inner peace. And because what it's doing is it's balancing the Ida and the Pingala power flows, which means you're balancing the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic aspects of your nervous system.
Okay, because when I did acupuncture, they had a series of needles that they connected throughout my whole body, and then this is when I did it in China, and then they hooked all of this to an electrical machine, like had batteries that was actually taking the battery and running that, like, literal energy from a battery and running it through my body. Wow. And I said, why are you doing this? And they said, well, because when your body knows the current and how it should normally flow, then it kind of goes, oh, okay, I remember how to do that. And it gets back into balance. So
That's cool.
Yeah, so I'm envisioning this, this alternate nostril breathing doing the same thing. I kind of like remember this is what you're supposed to be doing, and it kind of I think that's what I took away from what you were saying, that perhaps what it does is it creates the memory in your body that this is how it should normally flow. But that's what they did they did all sorts of crazy stuff when I was in China that they don't
Sounds
do here.
cool.
Yeah,
That's
it was
very
really cool.
cool.
And it was like a heavy duty battery. Like they didn't plug it into the wall, but it was pretty powerful. So it's a lot of energy, literal energy from a battery that was
Oh,
going through my body.
interesting.
Yeah, but they want to kind of reinitiate the flow, so my body
Mhm.
remembered how.
Well, probably they're talking about the microcosmic orbit, which is in my book, Color Your Chakras. There is one
Yeah.
page there about the microcosmic orbit. And I do
Okay.
talk about that. I'm not sure if I talk about that in the Power of Chakras, but I do talk about it in Awaken Your Third Eye.
A lot of people talk about this microcosmic. This is what it looks like. I remember trying to find the page in the back.
Exactly. There it
Yeah,
is.
and it's like it's this orbit that starts from your
Perineum.
perineum, and then goes all the way up and around your front, and it's kind of like creating this orbit. Um,
Correct.
which people do all sorts of things. They have
Oh,
sex with this. They have
visualize. Yes,
visualize. You can do all sorts of things with this
yes,
Microsoft.
that's right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and this is actually, so is this to actually reinitiate the energy flow through your body?
Yeah, yeah. And I have a feeling perhaps that acupuncture treatment that you did is associated with that
I think it is too.
microcosmic orbit.
Yeah, because it was running all along my body. They were having their needles running like on a little train track all along my spine, and then they were
Oh,
taking the. It's crazy.
oh,
Then they
okay,
also did ones where they actually had my right and left body, so they were
okay.
doing it front and back, and they were doing right and left. I'm like totally an
Fascinating.
experimental human being with all this stuff. Okay, so that's what the Ida and Pingala is. And then there's the you said that's the most important nadi,
It's
um,
Sushumna.
Sushimna.
It's
And
important for one thing. It's important for spiritual awakening because
mm,
that's the nadi through which Kundalini flows.
and what is Kundalini?
Okay, the word kundal, it means curled up.
Hmm.
It's a Sanskrit word that means curled up. So it's a curled up energy that's curled at the base of your spine
Hmm.
in Kandamula. There's a picture of that in the Color Your Chakras book, but in any case, it's well, that's the caduceus actually. That shows, and that's good. You should show that one because that's you can see there's Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna in the caduceus. Yeah,
Right.
the Sushumna is the one in the center through
Okay.
which Kundalini flows.
Right.
So Kundalini is curled up at the root, near the root chakra at Kandamula,
Hmm.
and it's coiled. Actually, if you can find that page, I don't know. It's near the root chakra. It would be the chakra right next
Yeah.
to the
Explain it.
root
Well,
chakra.
explain it. And is it this? It's not
And
this. Yeah, this one.
Kandamula,
Right.
no, actually, no, it's near the root chakra.
Okay.
Kandamula is the curled up energy. Kundalini is curled up there with
Hmm.
head down. It is in the scriptures. It's described as 3.5 coils around the lingam. There it is
I
with
did
head down.
it. Right.
With head down. So that's how it's described in the scriptures is looking just like that.
Hmm.
And what that means is this coiled up energy is asleep. Head
Hmm.
down means it's sleeping.
Hmm. Yes.
So in average individuals, it's sleeping because they have not awakened their spiritual self. Now,
Oh.
anyone who's watching this video has their Kundalini awakened to a great degree already, or you wouldn't even be interested in this topic. So, people who are not interested in intellectual pursuits, not interested in arts, sciences, anything, or they're only interested in survival, they're interested in food and sex, and that's it.
Right.
Those would be people whose Kundalini has not risen at all. The Kundalini is just sitting there asleep.
Hmm.
So that's why it's described as Kundalini, a coiled up energy.
Okay, so when people say, "Oh, you're awakened," they're
When
talking
you're
about
awakened, it means
awaken this.
Kundalini starts to wake up. Now,
Mm.
Sushumna Nadi is closed at the lower end most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
especially in people who haven't awakened.
Right.
Kundalini be completely closed. So in order to awaken Kundalini, there you can do spiritual practices to awaken Kundalini. In my book, The Power of Chakras, I have many, many exercises and methods for you to awaken Kundalini in a very safe way.
Mm-hmm.
So when you use these exercises, it helps that Kundalini to start to rise up the center of your spinal canal, which is where Sushumna Nadi resides. But remember, it's
Oh.
not in your physical body, but that is where it resides in your subtle body.
Oh, wait a second. So it's not in your physical
No,
body, but it resides.
there's no nadi, there's no chakra, there's no kundalini when you dissect a corpse.
Right.
They do not exist according to Western medicine.
So your spine isn't a approximation for it?
It is actually exactly where it is. It
Okay.
goes right up through the center of your spinal canal.
Okay. So I'll tell you my crazy story about Kundalini. So I've
Okay.
been doing a bunch of shows where I thought, well, I'm so sick of me navigating, my ego navigating. I really want the divine to navigate, and I am willing to release all to the divine. I reached a point where I'm like, this is what I want to do. So I went into a 7-day kind of meditation retreat with that intention. And the first, like after the third day, I started like, I'm like, oh my God, why am I breathing this bizarre way? And I literally couldn't, I was doing this meditation and I was breathing like that. And I was like, what
Very
is this?
good.
And then
Very
and
good.
the next day I went and my hand started shaking like this. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? And because I didn't know, it wasn't, the intention of this meditation wasn't that. It was just about, opening up, whatever. It was about manifesting. And that
Yeah.
was what I was trying to manifest.
Hmm.
And then I sat next to a gentleman who said, oh, that's Kundalini rising. And I was like, what? He's like, that's what Kundalini rising is. And I'm like, oh, because I thought I had experienced something like a Kundalini rising, but wasn't the physical manifestation. It was someone was working on my root chakra and they released something. And it literally felt like an internal explosion in my whole body. It's like just, so I thought, oh, that must be what Kundalini rising is. So I didn't know it was all these other things. He's like, I think that's Kundalini rising. I'm like, really? And he said, yeah. And he said, you just have to let it rip because something is trying to come through you. And the thing is when you're forcing it back with the trembling and the breathing, you're not allowing this thing to go through you. So the next day, we were in our last day of meditation. We woke up at 3 a.m. And what they were trying to do is, you had talked about this in one of the other shows. There's a point in your brain where it's just the hypothalamus. Is that what it is? The brain. You're trying to stimulate this part of your brain by doing all these intense breathing exercises to push all of your energy away from your body and moving your energy up here. And then when that happens, I guess in theory, what happens is it explodes this thing and just like a ray of energy flows out of you. So I thought, okay, like I don't know what that is, but I'm going to try. I'm going to get up and meditate at 3 a.m, which I did. And it was like, have you ever seen those things on the side at car dealership or car washes? There's like the tall, thin, um,
Yeah.
it's kind of
The
plastic
balloon.
thing, and they're
Balloon.
waving their hand, yeah, balloon, and they're waving their hand like this.
Uh,
All of a sudden, I was like, because I said, I give up. I surrender, I give up. I'm going to completely let go. So you can just rip through whatever. And so this is what happened it was 3 a.m. till I could have sworn it was 10, at least 10 o'clock. I was moving like that for 7 hours. And there's just all this energy was flowing. And I still, to this day, I'm like, I don't know what that was. And I still, when I meditate, sometimes there's energy that shakes. And it's kind of like, it either comes in my pelvic, like rocking back and forth, or it's my hands and arms start moving or start shaking, or usually my neck starts kind of cracking open.
mhm.
Is this Kundalini? What is this? That could be happening. Is that a manifestation of it, or is that like there are many
Yes.
forms?
Hmm. It is.
So what's happening? I still have no idea what's happening. I'm
What's
assuming.
happening is Sushumna is rising up through that central nadi called Sushumna Nadi.
Okay.
And when it rises up, it awakens your chakras,
Okay.
brings more prana to all of the areas of your body, but it also raises your consciousness. So
Ah.
Sushumna Nadi is responsible for opening the chakras and for awakening higher consciousness.
Ah. Okay. So what would one experience once they open up their? I don't know if I'm experiencing I would say that my life, I'm experiencing things that I hadn't, where things are just dropping out of the sky. Like I don't even know how things are happening or happening really quickly. I'm not efforting at all. Just things are happening around me and I'm present and I respond to the things that are happening, but that's about it. Is
Hmm.
that a manifestation of it, or what happens when?
Yeah,
Why don't do people even want to awaken their Kundalini? Um,
because they want to experience higher consciousness.
okay.
They want to find out who they really are and experience who they really are. They want to awaken to the divine presence. They
Hmm.
want to experience the goal of yoga. They want to experience yoga, actually. Yoga meaning union of the
Right.
individual self with the universal self.
Right.
They want to understand, they want to have self realization and realize who they are and realize God and know that that's the same thing.
So that's the level of consciousness that you start. And I would say that my conscious mind is becoming like I have to remind myself that every single day, but I'm thinking about it. That's the shift. Like before I wasn't thinking about it, whereas now I'll think about it a tad bit more. Not that much more above the average person, but a tad bit more. So when this happens, what is the shaking and the moving of the arms and the breathing? What is that? Is that
Well,
energy
as
that's
your
shot?
friend said, it's a resistance. Mhm.
Oh.
If you did, uh, if there were no resistance, you wouldn't experience any of these physical manifestations whatsoever.
Ah, interesting. So I got to a point in my meditation where I was shaking, and then it just stopped. And I
Hmm.
thought, oh, I must have like cleaned out the chakras and cleaned out all my
Yeah.
resistance. And then I hadn't been doing that meditation for a while. And now when I go back, it's the same kind of shaking. So it's almost like a spring cleaning that seems to have that happens. I don't know how to describe it. That happens with the Kundalini arising or awakening or whatever is happening.
Hmm.
So it's just basically increasing your consciousness when you do that.
Right.
And it's
Something good is happening.
yeah, and the weird thing is that everyone can do it, right? It's not like something that I mean, it's amazing to experience, but anyone can experience this with Kundalini rising, or I
Hmm.
mean, Kundalini yoga. I mean, I wasn't gunning for this experience, but I wanted to have the divine lead. And so this is what what I was shown, I guess, was kind of the
Hmm.
main one of the main pathways for it to
Yeah.
happen.
Well, I
Yeah.
could tell you a little story
Yeah,
about my
tell me.
first experience of Kundalini.
Yes, tell me.
Well, I was a hippie. It was the 1960s,
Mhm.
and I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was a flower child.
Mhm.
And probably most of the people watching this video, you don't really even realize that those of us who were hippies, who were into the whole consciousness raising movement at that time, we were really very serious about our spiritual development. We wanted to experience higher states of consciousness. And so people think of, the love generation, they think of the flower children as being about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But in fact, it was more about this experience of higher awareness. So I was reading books like the Buddhist scriptures,
Mhm.
and the Tibetan Book of the Dead was very popular back then. Also, I was reading Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda
Mhm.
and The Way of Zen and other books by Alan Watts.
Mhm.
And in Alan Watts' books, he kept saying that you have to find a meditation guide.
Mhm.
Well, in 1966 in Berkeley, California, you did not go through the telephone book and go to the yellow pages and
Right.
find a meditation guide or anything remotely similar to that.
Right.
So I asked a roommate, well, how do I find this meditation guide? What do I
Right.
do? He said, well, have you ever tried to meditate on your own? And I said, well, no, but I'll give it a shot. Why not? So I lay down on my bed. I didn't even know you're supposed to sit up when you meditate. That's
Right.
how clueless I was.
Right. And I still
I,
lie down. That's how clueless I still am.
I lay down on my bed and I sort of prayed for or asked for a meditation, whatever
Mhm.
that was. I didn't
Right.
know.
Wow.
Immediately, I was propelled into an ecstatic state. I
Wow.
felt a rush or cord of energy that was rushing from the tips of my toes all the way to the top of my head. I
Wow.
felt that I was plugged into an electric socket, but in a most ecstatic way. And I thought, well, I guess this must be meditation. Little did I know that not only had I had my first meditation, but I had had my Kundalini awakening all at the same time.
You're probably like, I want to meditate every day. Now I understand why people want to
Yes,
meditate.
yes, I did. And I wanted to, and I was really desperate to find a way to be able to meditate every day. But happily, a friend of mine eventually brought me to the meditation center, the Transcendental Meditation
Right.
Center. I saw the picture of the guru on the wall. Immediately, I thought, oh, this is it. This is what I have to do. This is what I have to devote myself to. So I did. And I
Wow.
learned meditation eventually. I had to wait 9 months for the teacher to even come back to the area because there was only like 2 teachers in the United States or something. So he came back eventually, and then I learned meditation. And then it was not too long after that that I found myself on the banks of the Ganges River in India studying with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was the founder of Transcendental Meditation. And he also was the guru of the Beatles, and
Yeah.
he was the guru of Deepak Chopra. So
Oh, wow.
that's
I had
how I
no idea
first
that was
learned
your.
meditation.
Wow, that is so cool. Okay,
Yeah, and
so
then I ended up living in his ashrams for 22 years.
for 22 years?
Yeah. And 7 of those years I was on his personal staff.
Wow, I had no idea. No wonder you're so phenomenal. Wow, that's really interesting. So do you still have a deep connection with your guru? I mean, does it feel like you're still in connection with
Well, I'm more
him?
in connection with other inner teachers now, actually,
Yeah.
because I haven't been practicing that method of meditation for, I'd say, 25, 30 years. I've been practicing another form of meditation, which is what I teach in my books.
Right.
My first book, Divine Revelation,
Right.
is where I really teach that practice. And also in a very recent book I've written, which is called Awaken Your Divine Intuition. That
Mhm.
same method is taught in that book. And that book, Awaken Your Divine Intuition, is like a seminar. It reads like a seminar, step
Mm.
by step. This is what you do. This is how you do it. Do this, do this, do this. And so it teaches you how to listen to that still small voice, the divine voice within, how to receive divine guidance, how to be connected with spirit, how to experience higher consciousness through this divine interconnection. So I've written several
Yeah, that's
books
actually that's when I first
about
met you
this.
is from the Divine Revelation. That's a book that I first interviewed you on. So I have that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I have
And
that
then
book,
I
but I
also
haven't gotten
wrote,
your newest book. I haven't
yeah,
seen the
I
newest
also
one.
wrote How to Hear the Voice of God. That also teaches that form of meditation. So the main 3 books that I've written that are about that are Divine Revelation, How to Hear the Voice of God, and Awaken Your Divine Intuition.
God, you're a busy woman. So you've written 13 books.
I have, and another book's
That's a
going to be
lot.
coming out. I don't know exactly when, but I just found out about the contract yesterday.
Yay.
It's going to
Okay,
be
cool.
called Blissed Out, and it's a memoir. It's a story of my life with Maharishi and what that was
Oh,
like.
that's going to be fascinating. Okay, make sure to tell me. Well, I know I'm on your list, so when that book comes out, I'm sure I will get it and we'll
Yeah,
interview you on
sure.
it. This has just been so fascinating. I love your clarity and simplicity and just pragmatism and all that you do. It really is a joy to see because you know this, right? You don't see it all the time.
Well, yeah.
It's a
There's a
rarity.
lot of airy fairy out there in the kind of new age. But the reality is that this is all based on ancient science.
Yeah.
This is based upon real, hard science that is used today in Chinese medicine and in Ayurvedic medicine. So it's not, this is not just some, okay, now we're going to balance our
Right. Like
chakras,
just go put
whatever.
a
It's
stone on
not
there. It's
about
like, yeah,
that. It's
yeah.
about really increasing the energy in your field and working with energy that will really enhance your life in powerful, positive ways.
Hmm.
It's about being able to be more successful in your life because you have more magnetic attraction, you have more charisma, you have more energy, and you're sharing that energy with other people. And it's the energy of love. It's not just, energy, it's
Right.
love, it's power, it's success, it's attracting money, attracting uh, friends, all of that. It's very, very practical when you use these energies in the right way.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Color Your Chakras. Dr. Susan Chomsky has been talking about one of her 13 books, one coming out. We're going to interview you when you come back with that book. I always love your work. Thank you so much for being here.